Welcome to the Small Business Big Future podcast from Visa, where we talk to some of the SMBs across the Asia-Pacific region and understand their challenges and opportunities in digital payments. Over the course of this series, we'll be talking to some of the payment experts within the industry, SMBs themselves, and many other exciting guests that we'll be bringing to the series. For the second episode, we're here in Hanoi, Vietnam, talking about fraud within Asia-Pacific and specifically how that's impacting SMBs across the region. Today with us on the podcast, we have two great guests. We'll be speaking through some of the challenges they're seeing in the space. Our first guest is Annie Yu. Annie is the founder and CEO of Tubudd, an online platform. And also from the Visa team, the country manager for Vietnam and Laos, Dung Dang. Truly, when we look at fraud across the region, it's a big challenge and often a shifting challenge. As more businesses move online, so do the fraudsters. And this has multiple different challenges, especially for SMBs who are often more hard hit from some of the challenges of fraud. First is simply the cost. Every dollar of fraud costs about $4 for the average business. At the same time, there's an element of trust. Individuals and businesses want to know that their payments are safe and secure. If that element of trust isn't there, people will go to other businesses to complete whatever they're looking to do. So over the course of this podcast today, we're going to be talking through some of these opportunities and challenges, some of the experiences that Annie's had with her business, as well as some of the solutions that both Visa has and the marketplace has. So Annie, maybe let me start with you to set the stage. Can you tell us, first of all, a little bit about Tubudd, what you do, and what your experience has been around fraud?
Sure, amazing. Thank you, then. So I'm from Tubudd, and we created Tubudd about 6 years ago. And first of all, we started Tubudd in the UK, where a lot of things was a little bit more transparent, easier to process, especially in like the payment term or legal term. And then we decided to move back to Vietnam because this is where I'm from, and Vietnam is a growing market, and it increased in tourism industries like a lot over the years. So I've got a lot of problems around the legal side, the payment side, and how to make things fit into the puzzles. Tubudd is a platform where we connect travelers to the local experts. We call them the local buddies. It's like a friend. So we are in many different countries, but primarily and mainly in Vietnam. So we serve inbound travelers into Vietnam and also Vietnamese people who travel abroad as well. We're very familiar with foreign payments. We have to get payment from other countries. Our customers would have to pay online because we're trying to eliminate cash in our business from the day one because we think that is a very unsafe method. If the customer flying over to Vietnam book a local buddies already and then deal with them face to face and then pay cash to that person, that involves a lot of risks for that person. We don't want them to carry a lot of cash around. We're trying to eliminate all of that by them paying us upfront on the app. So we also have our payment gateway on the app, but have to deal with a lot of payment kind of situation around that.
So as you have shifted to these digital payments, how have you noticed fraud change? Has that been an increasing challenge for you as an SMB?
Sure. For an SME, we are so small, and we are still small in terms of the big goal that I have for Tubudd. But at the time, when in 2019, the end of 2018, when we started out in Vietnam, we were so small. We have our revenue was about $10,000 a month. For GMV, that's how much money that we got in. Right now we got like way more than that. But so even at the time, we also have to think of how to get people pay, how is secure way for them. Because a lot of customers don't know how to transfer the money to us and feel like they don't really trust us transferring money to, for example, in Vietnam is very popular the way that they transfer to a personal bank account. And they feel unsafe in that. And it's very hard to gain their trust in that term, to explain to them how the payment works in Vietnam and things like that. So when we upgraded to digital payment gateway, it eliminates a lot of them questions, but still there's a lot of things that we still have to answer because we go through a third-party payment gateway because we're still so small. There's a lot of questions around the customers don't know how to use that typical type of payment gateway, or the customer don't trust them, or had a bad experience with that company already, leading to the fact that they don't really trust us. There's a lot of work to go around instead of just send them an invoice and say, hey, pay me. And we have to do a lot of work around making sure that they trust us enough in terms of relation, customers, and the supplier, and at the same time with the payment gateway as well.
It's amazing how that I still remember my first transaction online, and that trust is you really took it for granted now, but back then it was very early days. And I think when we look at Southeast Asia, especially with the SMBs that are digitizing post-COVID or during COVID, that transition to digital payments is challenging both for the SMBs and for the individuals that are buying from the SMBs. Sure. So I want to come to you. Annie kind of pointed out some of the challenges that she's seen around that. What are some of the top trends in fraud that SMBs should know in Southeast Asia and more specifically here in Vietnam?
Yeah, I think all of us know that Asia-Pacific region and also Vietnam is known as the region with its highest adoption of smartphone and internet banking at the same time. That's a good thing to have. And then because of that, mobile-led payment, digital payment become like a growing fast ever, right? But then at the same time, I think when we talk about the mobile-led digital payment, we talk about the e-commerce, the Asia-Pacific in general, it also become the highest target of the digital payment fraud. In Visa, we've done a lot of surveys, right? And I can say just in the latest global fraud and payment study of Visa, a couple of things that is really alert us, like a 3.4 average, number of fraud cases, is that average fraud cases that the SMB small businesses in Asia Pacific are facing in the year. And at the same time, every year, the small businesses lose about 3.3% of the e-commerce revenue to fraud, which is really significant. And talking just specific about Vietnam, right? Out of 43 million fraud cases in 2023 reported, 17.1 million belong to Vietnam. So just create a very critical call for Asia Pacific and for us to really see how the financial ecosystem as a whole can really address these challenges for small businesses, which is for us is very important segment, contribute the most in terms of GDP growth for the market as well. Given that scenario, I think the fraud become ever in terms of variety and also sophistication as well. We can name some of very a primary fraud type of fraud that the SMB are facing, like a phishing, farming, or we call it whaling, and also some of policy abuse. For example, chargeback dispute policy becomes the area that the bad actor also try to explore as well, and also the first party a misuse, where how to identify the legitimate card holder using the risk-based authentication. So there are some other solutions we can talk about later, but this kind of very regular a fraud type that we see become very increasing very much in Asia Pacific. Yeah.
For large multinationals that are operating online, Dung, to stick with you for a second, tackling fraud is much easier because they have budgets, they have teams, they have large teams that can focus on fraud and ensure that. For SMBs, it's quite a bit different. What are the top fraud concerns you always hear from SMBs?
Phishing and online scam, I think, are very top on the fraud types that we hear from the SMB, and also on the first party use, misuse, as I mentioned, right? So as SMB, as a merchant, how to identify that the buyer who are paying for me is the right buyer, then making sure that I can receive the payment at the end of the day. So normally, as that, and you also share, right? Via fund transfer, sometimes, does fraud still happen? With card payment, let's say, how we can help to identify that? The moment the cardholder initiates transaction in the flow, how we can help to authenticate, making sure that the cardholder is legitimate, how we can make sure that information of the cardholder going through the payment flow is secure to ensure that the merchant at the end of the day, as SMB, can receive the right payment as well. Online scam, as I mentioned, is also become a very popular type of fraud that we see as well. Phishing is another one where they try to attack into and using some fraud website, app as well, just to create and to get information of the customer. So this type of fraud, I think, is more often happen in the market like Vietnam and Asia Pacific in general.
Yeah, it's interesting that because the fraud can come from both sides, right? You have the consumers that might want to defraud the SMB, and then the SMB might want to defraud the consumers in particular cases as well. Annie, coming back to you, I mean, with your experience running Tubudd, what are some of the examples of fraud that you've experienced, and does what Dung was talking about and the challenges for you around fraud, does that resonate?
Yeah, 100%. I don't particularly go through any fraud yet or committed any fraud yet, but I have our customers complaining to us a lot about how do I know that you are a real person or like a real company, even after every single thing. And at the beginning, when we first launched the app with the payment gateway on the app, there's a lot of people drop out at the payment. The fail will be like a payment timeout. And then we got all of that and we emailed them. Well, we asked them, okay, you wanted to book this person for your trip, you found us, you downloaded the app, you created your account. What was the reason why you didn't go through with the payment? Payment timeout means they stay at the payment page for too long and then they exit the app. A lot of people don't answer, but most of their answers that we got back was just about that they was either considering it again, have the second thought, or mainly just about how safe it is to go through with these kind of payment. Are you not like using, you're not keeping my data, you're not using this, things like that. And then we partner with PayPal and PayMe, payment gateway into our app, and then we have to come back and kind of tell them, explain to them about how it works and things like that. So even though that, like, come back to my point before, that we have to spend a lot of time, even on the app, we have to spend a lot of time on customer service, just explain to people about how it works. And we don't keep these kind of information of the cards at all. We don't do this, we don't do that. And these fees are extra for these third party to ensure everything is well, things like that. Some can convert back into some sales, but a lot of people just drop out on that at the beginning because they're not really sure how that goes. And then, of course, we got more reviews and rating on a lot of third-party websites, Play Store and App Stores. Then people starting, kind of trust it. So that is what our customer must be feeling, very insecure making a payment online, even though each of our amount, which is around $100, no more than $100, $150, and it's not too much for them, but they still feel like very, very insecure, like unsafe in that term. Come back to me, I think I've seen a lot of these kind of phishing scams that we're talking about online, and especially like people around me who are on SMBs. And they have experienced these kind of payments and these kind of things that they don't want to go through, but it's very tempting for them, or it's too good to be true, those kind of things. Or these kind of fraud that install something into your computer, help you to transfer money easier, or like help you to do this kind of thing, but it's, less the amount of fees that they have to pay or things like that. And then at the end of the day, you see that your bank account, your money in your bank is gone. And I've seen that a lot as well, especially in Vietnam. Those kind of things like on media is pretty much every day. And the other day I actually heard from in my residence, in my area, people go around and talk to old people about not making these kind of payments online. But that comes back to the fact, to the difficulties for the business owners like me, is that if the people reluctant of paying online, then it would affect the fact that we're trying to do all of our payment online, because that's the transparent way, that is the digital way, that is the quickest way and the cheapest way. And then people are being educated because there's a lot of phishing scams out there. You shouldn't make this kind of payment. So it's very, very bad for us. It's good that people get awareness, but at the same time it's bad for us because people scared of paying it online. And I assume that there's a lot of, in other countries, that get a lot of warning about, payment to Vietnam specifically. And so company like us thinking of have to, cooperate or bringing a bigger partners, or have to go to other countries like Singapore to set up an entity in order to make it more secure in that term. And those are like the big steps, like the big leap for an SMBs to just think about and to do it.
That's a really interesting point around some of the small steps and big steps. Can you talk a little bit about how that journey has been for you? Because on day 1,000, you're still thinking about fraud all of the time, but your ability as an SMB to actually address those issues changes over time. Can you talk a little bit about how you looked at that internally, and then maybe with partners that you used along the way to help you address that to where you are today.
Sure. Our advantage of being an SMB is that we're very agile and we're flexible. So one day we will be like, okay, we need to stop using cash. We just start, implement something, digital payment gateway, things like that. So we have a few ways for people to pay us. And we have some partners, our payment gateway online that we partner with. We partner with PayPal, PayMe, partner with Visa to help us to secure those kind of payment online, to make it available and easier. And because these are the big guys, so we would just trying to leverage their reputation of this is the safe and secure way of doing, of getting a payment, and then they would feel more comfortable of doing those things. And those are like the small steps. But if we're thinking about, okay, we have to, transfer, because then Tubudd would not just be receiving money from abroad, but also sending money abroad a lot more. And that is a big question in Vietnam. Easy for money to come in and very hard for money to come out of Vietnam particularly. And we have to pay our buddies in other countries. Then how would that work then? And then how much is when we decide when we're going to move our companies or when we're going to make another big step in terms of these payment gateways. So these are the challenges that we as a tech startup have to think about pretty much every day and every time we work with any partner. So right now we have our partners in Japan, in Europe, and in Australia. The first thing that we have to make sure we are on the same page with each other is how we create these payment gateway. How do we get money from our customers and how do we distribute this money or how to send the money to our partners? And this is very hard because it's complicated. You send it through this account and you have to find a way to send through the different accounts, especially in Vietnam. So those are the big questions that we have to try to answer every day.
Yeah, I think once you shift from domestic payments to cross-border payments, the sensitivity around making that payment increases dramatically from that. Yeah. So with what Annie shared about the steps that she's gone through as an SMB, is that kind of similar to what you've seen at the other SMBs that work with Visa around that in terms of the way that they look at fraud and then the way that they kind of increase their awareness and best practices around combating fraud? Absolutely,
right. I think when we are talking about e-commerce, we always think about card not present card fraud, right? And card not present fraud, people CNP, increase very fast comparing even traditional card present like a fraud today. And to be honest, hotel, travel, transportation become ranking like a top in the list of facing this type of fraud as well on the e-commerce side, right? But that's great to hear that Annie with Tubudd really participated and have chosen the partner like a local payment gateway like a PayMe and even PayPal, the global payment platform there, right? To really facilitate her receiving payment from their customer and also maybe like initiating her payment as well, right? To other beneficiaries from with her own business as well. And one of the things, the reason why I say that that's a great way that Tubudd has choosing because for SMB with the size of the business, there are some current certain challenges that they are facing. One is not all the SMB can have same condition or have similar access into the most updated technology, especially on the fraud detection technology today. So because of that, the fraud detection tool are really varies from one SMB to another. And just also the challenge of whether it's a good way for them to start themselves to invest, the answer should be no. The reason is because the scale, the financial cap need for that investment, the continuous updating on that technology to making sure that they will have the most advanced, the best cap like a fraud detection tool should be there, could require a lot of investment. Fraud and also security cap training to the staff. All of this type of thing require a lot of investment. And it never would be the strong suggestion that SMEs should invest by themselves. Mm-hmm. But they have the better way to really enter into that cap, like the best use of this technology by choosing the right partner who really be the key player in the ecosystem and who always have the standard, like the process has to be certified with all of this, like a top security and fraud detection cap tool globally. So I think just a smart way to do. But then even with that, I think still a lot of knowledge, know-how, skill that the SMB should be equipped from time to time. So they should also not just only learn from others, should be sharing as well to making sure that, okay, in the ecosystem, different partner, different players are aware of those type like a fraud. Participating, collaborating with partner, attending in the forum of payment security and how other global partner can help. The SMB could be a very good suggestion for SMB to go. But coming back on such journey of SMB, I think, absolutely, that every SMB, I think, should have been experiencing the moment they think of how they can start the business, not just thinking about how they're expanding the market, who are the target segment, but fraud and security of payment should be a very important backbone that they need to think of and identify the right way to bring that technology in, to making sure that the business will be safe, they have a better connection with consumer in the secure way, and at the end of the day, as Annie said, that create the trust with the consumer and make more sustainability of their growth as well. Yeah. Right.
One topic we haven't talked about yet, which I'm kind of surprised we haven't gotten to yet, actually, is data and the role of data. And so, I mean, coming back to you on this, similar to what you were saying about partnering, and obviously when you partner a player like Visa can bring together all of these tools, these technologies together to help SMBs fight fraud. Another key element of that is got to be the data, right? Because Tubudd is a growing business, but is doing thousands of transactions, whereas Visa is looking at tens of thousands of transactions every second. So what role does data play in that, and how can SMBs better leverage data to both detect fraud and fight fraud?
I think, fighting against fraud requires like a vast amount of data. And just at the same time, require the very advanced data analytics capability. Because data power like the fraud detection, for example, tool is become critical because the more data we have, the smarter the tool, let's say like a risk-based scoring to identify and alerting the earlier fraud. Even not just only when after fraud happened, but then even before the fraud happened, become very critical. But the question is, where's the data coming from? So the data should be contributed by everyone, not just only from banks, from fintech. It should coming from the merchants, very, very important. So sometimes we think that, okay, top of mind of the merchant is that, okay, I would like to reduce the cost, which is a great thing, right? That's should think of how to making sure that operation become more efficient, become more cost optimization, but at the same time thinking of how they can contribute to the whole ecosystem in terms of data collaboration. Because the more data we have, the better tool of fraud detection that we have. Now, I give you an example in Visa, right? We are treasury, I think we mandate in Vietnam, for example, from 2018 to have an EMV 3DS. And recently, we already mandated 2.0 version, which means that more than 10 times of data is flowing through between issuer and the merchant. And a lot of information actually coming from the merchant to the issuer, but at the same time, issuer also have a flexibility to really enrich more data there of how they understand about the merchant. And this data become the very strong foundation for us to really decide the risk-based authentication solution, which really help the bank, the issuer, to identify the legitimate cardholder. So, great example of how data is important for whole ecosystem. And when you participate in that ecosystem with participation from your bank as the acquirer or the bank who bring in the cardholder for you, right? Who make the payment for you, and at the same time from your side, this become the whole ecosystem secure and safe ecosystem to making sure that, okay, you can pay and get paid securely. That's why data, I think, become really critical. But the message is that, okay, the data doesn't come from one single source. It's become the contribution and the accountability of everyone of how we should participate together in the ecosystem.
It's really bringing together the ecosystem, the data, to be able to provide that service to everybody and benefit everybody as well. Annie, when we look forward into the future, as your business continues to evolve, what are the key opportunities do you think that you see just in general for your business, and then more specifically around fraud? What are kind of some of the tools and techniques that you picture Tubudd investing in the near future to fight fraud?
One of the things that we wanted to do years ago when we first started Tubudd was KYC, EKYC, right? Our customers, every single one. Because it's not just about fraud for the payment. We also deal with people. You book a person, and this is a transaction between, and the relationship between two people outside somewhere on the street in some other city in some other country. So it's very important for us to be able to understand this person, this whole persona. Who are they? If they are, say about who they are is matched with what is in ID or passport or things like that. And then if they say who they are, if they are who they are, and then it's a logic of that is that we have to invest our technology in that terms of how to verify this person. This is Zong, this is Zen, this is Annie, and to make sure that this person is safe. So we're also looking at some behaviors online, like social graph, like social media, to see if our person was anybody. Do they, are they say good citizen online, or are they, very bad image online? That also, comes with consideration, like points, so that we can move on to, is it okay for this person to book right away, or this person to book somebody for a long days, like a lot of days in a row. I want to also invest in something to detect the fraud, because we have got, so before I mentioned about I'm not getting any fraud just yet, but we have a few cases. I'm not sure if the fraud or not, but a few cases that comes up kind of red flag, that people kind of booking for a long days, like 2 weeks or 3 weeks, for somebody who's very expensive on our platform, and don't want to pay straight away, or just want to pay a little bit here, and then trying to pay for like cash, or trying to pay by different kind of methods and send us kind of different links to get into this and that. And I feel like it's very unsafe for, when people send me links, I just don't open it, stranger. But even so, like they keep persistent on it, like too much in a way that I don't feel really comfortable in it. So to really say no, and I feel like, okay, that is very good sales for the company, but then I have to, not sure if this is gonna be a good thing for us. So then we have to kind of say no, things like that. So that happens a few times. And kind of increase our alert into these kind of, customers that we don't really know. So one thing that I want to invest in the future for, to really verify who they are, where they have been, what they have done, or for the buddies would be their rating and their reviews. We need to make sure that they are safe for people to book, safe to hang around people, but we can control that now. But for the customers, we don't really control that just now yet. We only know, the name, the email, the phone numbers, and that's it. So we can contact with them to talk to them a little bit. So for some requests, it's a little bit odd. We talk to them first before we actually let them book on the platform. But in the future, I want to be able to look at an account and really see, okay, this person is verified. Is the real person, and his intention is genuine, and so we can go ahead. This is very hard for us because it's on people business.
Yeah, you're reliant on people on both sides to be able to handle that and get through it effectively. Technology will reshape the future of payments and fraud. Indeed, generative AI, I think, is the thing that we've all come to grips with over the past year as we've played around with that for our own personal use, and then obviously for companies as well. Visa has invested tremendously in this, about $3 billion US in AI and data infrastructure to help support and innovate around things like fraud and risk management. So can you talk a little bit about how that money is being used and the kind of products and services that Visa is launching to help SMBs?
Absolutely, right. AI, or we can say real-time fraud detection technology, become not only optional now, it's become like a mandatory for both organizations and especially for our small businesses. Whatever we invest and develop should aim really at like a desire secure and safe environment for payment. For consumer and businesses as well. Yeah, you are right. Visa is an organization who have invested hugely in this area. And just for over the last 5 years, I think in specific, like a new AI-driven fraud detection solution, another like around $10 million that has been invested as well. But that investment really paid off well. Why we got the record that in just 2023 alone, about $40 billion has been blocked by Visa. Which is really like a very big value of how we really contribute with the technology to stop or to like eliminate the like a cyber threat use cases globally. In Vietnam, actually, the payment security roadmap has been really mandated and really work very closely with all the partners in the market. So across Asia Pacific, we do the same thing, right? We launch this like payment security roadmap with every market, where there are four key pillars. I think just really like be consistent with the way Visa investing and developing this like the security for a feature for a payment. One is making sure that the data is devalued on the flow of the transaction. So it's become really useless for criminals. So some technology like the EMV, like a token that you heard recently, where instead of 16 digits number of the card just going through the like a transaction flow, now the token will be initiated for every single transaction. So it's eliminate on the like a specific information of the card holder to be flow into the transaction like a process as well. The second component, which is very important, is making sure that data is protected, of course. The third one is data harness. Now, we talk about this harness data and how its technology is to even identify fraud, as I said before it happened, and why it makes a confidence for an issuer to outright the transaction without hindering the like user experience. So again, the technology like a tokenization, risk-based authentication that I mentioned about is really like a very efficient like a technology to do that. And finally, very important, even we're talking about technology, but some solution just to empower the consumers on the way of how they understand their transaction. They can even putting in some control themselves by setting the limit for transaction, setting the location that they want to block while they are not traveling into those locations, blocking on some channel that they are not transacting at a certain point of time. All of this really empower and educate a lot on the consumers of how they should protect their transaction from their end as well. And these four key pillars as on the payment security roadmap that Visa be very consistent. I think in Asia Pacific, you hear about this launch of like the 1 billion token in 2024, and that's result of a lot of technology investment in there, where we really launching the new Visa token service across the region. And then as a result of that, like a new innovation like Apple Pay, Google Pay has been launched across the market. And Vietnam is a country with now like a fully launched with 4 Global Pay, Garmin Pay, Apple Pay, Google Pay, and also like a Samsung Pay, as we know, right? Along with Apple Pay, Google Pay, etc., one of key thing that Visa credential can be provisioned into those pay. And every time the consumer make payment, it's become very secure, very convenient. And again, the token technology is like adopted in there. Other thing as you hear as a merchant, right? Tap to pay. You also can accept the payment now with like a Visa credential as a source of fund for wallet. So we really enable different technology to help the consumer can pay in different way with the source of fund from card, not just only through card rail, but also non-card rail. Globally, I think as General that you said, right, in March 24, we also like announced that like a 3 new solution for AI power fraud detection solution. I can mention 2 of that. One is the enhancement of, we call the Visa Advanced Authorization and Visa Risk Manager solution, where we really, again, just to enhance and develop more capability on our existing solution to support non-Visa card payment transactions, which is earlier we're talking just a Visa card. Now we're just really helping our like Visa member to really centralize their fraud detection solution by supporting not only Visa but also the activity beyond our like ecosystem as well. The second, I think, is a Visa Deep Authorization VDA, which is use AI technology along with big data analytics, just again to help to identify and to manage the payment fraud on the CNB, on the card not present on the e-commerce side, and again just still ensure the very frictionless user experience in there. So this kind of technology keep evolving, but yeah, as I said, this all of investment really paid off well of how we're really making sure that the payment global ecosystem are safe and secure to protect both consumer and businesses. And yeah, I think that's great for SMB be equipped with all of this kind of update technology and also choose the right partner again to make sure that you can benefit from those. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's exciting times for SMBs in the region because you have all of these new payment choices that are getting closer to the consumer. So it's if they want to use a digital wallet, if they want to use a QR code, if they want to use a card, they can use these things. But at the same time, it introduces so many more challenges around that. This discussion has been really great. I've learned a lot about what the ecosystem is doing to address fraud across the region and really hearing from SMB themselves around some of the challenges that they're facing. So thank you, Annie, Dung, for this conversation. Really interesting look at fraud for SMBs in Asia Pacific.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Can I give a suggestion to Annie? Yeah, Annie, we have a ongoing white paper of Visa on enhancing the small and medium businesses with really global fraud and payment technologies. So that I believe that would be very helpful for the business like you to always keep you on the top of what's going on. What would be the option that as a business can enjoy and benefit there to support your growth and also the operation efficiency.
Amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Certainly. We'll include a link on that. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for this episode of Small Business, Big Future, where we are looking at fraud with SMBs. Again, this is the second episode of our series where we're in Hanoi, in Vietnam. Stay tuned for the next episodes where we'll be looking at more of the opportunities and challenges for SMBs across the region, especially around digital payments.